Imagine holding a penny in your hand. Copper-colored, scratched from years of circulation, the kind you toss into a change jar without a second glance. But what if that tiny piece of change was hiding a secret so rare, so unbelievable, that it could change your entire life? That's exactly the story of the 1985 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that has stunned collectors, baffled experts, and made one lucky finder over $1 million richer. Now, let me take you back to 1985. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. Gas was $1.20 a gallon. People were wearing neon clothes and listening to cassette tapes. And deep inside the Denver Mint, workers were striking billions of pennies for everyday use. Billions. With that many coins flying through the presses, perfection wasn't always guaranteed. Mistakes happened. Errors slipped through. But nobody knew that one of these mistakes would one day become one of the most valuable pennies in modern American history. For years, this coin traveled quietly. From registers to pockets, from hands to jars. People bought candy with it, left it as a tip, dropped it into vending machines. Nobody knew its true value. Nobody realized they were holding a piece of American treasure. Collectors call it one of the greatest modern finds in the Lincoln Cent series. And the moment it was discovered, the entire coin world lit up. Why is a 1985 D-penny, something you might still find in your change, worth up to $1.1 million today? The answer lies in a mistake so small, most people will never notice it, and that's exactly why so many of these coins were lost. You see, in 1985, the U.S. Mint was still working with dies that wore down quickly. Overstrikes, doubling, and misalignments were not uncommon. And somewhere in that chaos, a small batch of pennies left Denver with errors so dramatic, they would later be called once-in-a-lifetime rarities. One coin, in particular, carried doubling so sharp, so obvious under magnification that experts were left speechless. When it hit auction, bidders erupted. What started as a humble penny transformed into $1 million miracle. But here's the kicker: this coin could still be out there. Right now. Sitting in someone's coffee can, hidden inside a forgotten piggy bank, or rattling around in your glove compartment. Collectors are convinced that more examples exist, waiting to be found, and the story doesn't end there. The first time a 1985 D-era penny crossed the auction block, dealers thought it might fetch a few $1,000s. But as the bidding war heated up, prices shot higher and higher and higher. Collectors were desperate. The final hammer fell, and jaws dropped. A single Lincoln penny, worth just 1 cent on paper, had just sold for over $1 million. Think about that for a second. One man's pocket change became a life-changing fortune. One tiny coin, smaller than a quarter, lighter than a nickel, suddenly became a golden ticket. And what makes it even crazier is how easy it would have been to miss. Most people glance at their change and toss it aside. But this coin proves that fortune can be hiding in the most ordinary places. But what happened next stunned the coin world. The discovery of the 1985 D-penny sparked a frenzy. Collectors began tearing through rolls of pennies, hunting for that same magical error. Coin dealers scrambled to pay top dollar for any example that surfaced. And the whispers began: if one of these sold for over $1 million, could another sell for even more? Now, I know what you're thinking. How do you know if you have the right one? How do you tell the difference between a common 1985 D-penny and the $1 million version? That's the key. And this is where most people make the mistake of overlooking their own treasure. Here's what you need to look for. First, check the mint mark. The D for Denver should be bold and clear. But under close inspection, especially with a magnifying glass, you'll want to search for signs of doubling. Letters in the word Liberty, the date, 1985. And even the word I in God we trust can show doubling so strong, it almost looks like shadow writing. Some examples even show misaligned strikes, where the design looks slightly shifted on the coin's surface. If you spot that, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't toss it into a jar. Because you might be holding a fortune. Collectors also warn about one thing: counterfeits. Because the value is so high, scammers try to pass off fakes. Real experts know the difference, and certified grading services can confirm authenticity. If you think you've found one, the smartest move is to send it in for grading. It could be the decision that takes a penny worth 1 cent and turns it into one worth over $1 million. So the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a penny, don't ignore it. Don't assume it's worthless. Because somewhere out there, another 1985 mint mark Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it is, it won't just change a collector's life, it will rewrite history. And here's the truth you can't ignore: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But instead, it became a story that stunned the entire coin collecting world. A 1994 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, that looks just like the one you might have in your pocket right now, has been valued at up to $1.2 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, the coin you probably wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the sidewalk, could be the very thing that changes your life forever. The story of the 1994 no mint mark penny is almost like a hidden chapter in America's history. On the surface, it looks like any other coin. Abraham Lincoln's face, the memorial reverse, the familiar coppery glow. But there's a catch, a tiny omission that has transformed this penny into $1 million miracle. You see, most 1994 pennies were struck with a tiny letter below the date, marking where they were minted, a D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia. But a rare, unmarked version slipped through the cracks. A coin without a mint mark, born of error, secrecy, and chance. And because so few exist, collectors have gone absolutely wild trying to track them down. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these coins appeared at auction, and the bidding war that followed wasn't just fierce, it was unbelievable. Dealers and collectors who had spent their entire lives hunting rare pennies couldn't believe what they were seeing. Each raise of the paddle pushed the price higher and higher, until the final hammer came down. The coin had sold for nearly $1.2 million. The whispers spread like wildfire. Suddenly, every collector, every hobbyist, every everyday person with a jar of pennies in their closet started asking the same question. Could I have one of these? Imagine the suspense of holding a 1994 penny in your hand, squinting at the date, and realizing there's no mint mark. Your heart races. You think back to the stories. Could this be the one? Could this single coin in your palm be the key to $1 million windfall? Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on even the faintest leads. And one man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. But the mystery only grew deeper. Was it a minting oversight? Or was it fate? To this day, theories swirl among coin experts, but what no one denies is this: the 1994 no mint mark penny has become one of the most legendary discoveries of modern numismatics. And here's the kicker: most people miss it. They look at the coin, they see the date, they assume it's nothing special, and they toss it back in the jar. But that tiny missing mint mark is the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. You're at the grocery store checkout, and your change includes a handful of dull pennies. You're about to shove them in your pocket without a thought. But then you notice it. 1994, no D. No P. Just the date. That's the exact kind of everyday miracle that can happen, and has happened, to ordinary people. But the story doesn't stop there. Collectors whisper about examples found in circulation, tucked away in coin rolls, even hiding in plain sight in penny jars passed down through generations. Each discovery fuels the fire, keeps the legend alive, and reminds us that treasure can still be found in the most ordinary places. Now, let me be clear. Not every 1994 penny without a mint mark will fetch $1 million. Condition matters. Errors matter. The sharpness of the strike, the luster of the coin, the grade assigned by professional evaluators, all of these can make or break its value. But when one checks every box, the market has proven it's willing to pay 7 figures. And that's why people just like you are still searching today. Because lightning does strike. Because sometimes, fate places a fortune in the palm of your hand. And because, when it comes to rare coins, history has shown us that miracles are possible. So, how do you identify this life-changing penny? First, check the date, 1994. Then, look just below it. If there's a mint mark, a small D or a P, it's a regular strike. But if there's nothing there at all, no mint mark, no letter, just empty space, you may be holding one of the rarest and most valuable coins of modern times. Collectors recommend using a magnifying glass, good lighting, and patience. Sometimes faint marks or damage can trick the eye, so you want to be absolutely sure. And if you think you found one, get it authenticated immediately by a trusted grading service. That's how you turn curiosity into confirmation, and confirmation into cash. The year was 1978. America was buzzing with disco fever, gas prices were climbing, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was quietly producing millions of ordinary Lincoln pennies. To most people, these coins were nothing more than spare change. But hidden in that ocean of copper was something different. Something rare. Something that would shake the coin world decades later. It all started with a mistake. A tiny minting error that went completely unnoticed by workers at the Denver Mint. A slip in the die, an alignment issue, a detail so small that most people who held this coin in their hands never saw anything unusual. They spent it on a cup of coffee, dropped it into vending machines, or left it buried in the back of a drawer. But to collectors, that mistake transformed this penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, and then, decades later, one surfaced. At first, it looked like just another dull brown coin. But when collectors examined it closely, they couldn't believe their eyes. The markings were off. The surfaces were sharper. The strike was unlike the others. And suddenly, whispers began circulating in the coin community. Whispers that the 1978 Lincoln penny might not be ordinary at all. At auction, this penny didn't just fetch a few $100s. It didn't even stop at a few thousand. Bidders from around the country drove the price into the stratosphere, past hundreds of thousands, until finally, the hammer dropped. This little penny, once worth a single cent, had realized a value of over $1.3 million. 1 cent, into $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were desperate to confirm whether more examples existed. People began pulling out old jars, digging through boxes and attics, even checking their pocket change again and again. Because if one could slip through the cracks, surely another might be hiding out there, waiting to be discovered. And here's where it gets even more mysterious. Most people think the 1978 penny is common. After all, the Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of them. But the truth is, only a handful show the traits that make them worth this kind of money. A subtle doubling, a striking anomaly, or an unusually clean die impression. These are the details most eyes miss, but the details that mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million. One man's story proves it best. He had been collecting casually for years, more out of nostalgia than profit. One evening, while searching through his old coin rolls, he found a 1978 penny that looked different. The shine was sharper, the features more pronounced. He almost brushed it off as nothing. But curiosity got the better of him, and he sent it in for grading. Weeks later, the news came back. Not only was it authentic, it was one of the rarest known errors of its kind. That coin later sold for hundreds of thousands, changing his life forever. But here's the chilling part. He admitted that he nearly spent it at a convenience store the very week before. Imagine losing $1 million fortune for a candy bar, and yet most people are still doing exactly that. Every day, pennies like these pass unnoticed from hand to hand, clinking into change trays, rolling across counters, and vanishing into circulation. That's why collectors are rushing now, more than ever, to inspect their coins before it's too late. On a 1978 Lincoln penny with the D Mint mark, pay close attention to the details. Some carry an error in the strike, doubling in the lettering, faint distortions around Lincoln's profile, or misaligned features that separate them from the rest. Others are valuable because of their pristine condition, shiny red luster, untouched by circulation, the kind of flawless strike that graders call mint state. Combine that with an error, and you're holding something worth a fortune. The mistake most beginners make is dismissing older pennies as too common to matter. But the coin world doesn't work that way. Sometimes the rarest treasures hide inside the years no one expects. The 1978 penny is living proof of that. While most people chase the famous 1909 or 1943 pennies, the 1978 quietly waits in drawers and jars, overlooked and underestimated. That's what makes it so dangerous to ignore, and so powerful for the lucky ones who find it. Every collector dreams of discovering the coin that changes everything. For some, that dream has already come true, with a 1978 penny worth up to $1.3 million. And for you? It might just be one coin search away. So the next time you reach into your change jar, don't just glance at the date. Look closer. Study every detail. Because that exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Yes, a single 1979 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, turned out to be one of the most shocking coin discoveries in American history. Imagine this. It's the late 70s. Gasoline is cheap, disco is everywhere, and pocket change is just pocket change. Nobody thinks twice about pennies. But deep inside the machinery of the Philadelphia Mint, something unusual happened. A coin was struck in a way that no one expected. And decades later, collectors would be stunned to discover what this small copper piece was hiding. Most 1979 pennies look ordinary. You see Lincoln's face, the memorial reverse, and that's it. But there are a few, so rare, so secretive, that they can fetch up to $1.4 million at auction. 1 cent, worth more than most people's homes. But why? That's the mystery. And the answer lies in the tiniest of details. You see, mint marks matter. In 1979, Denver and San Francisco coins carried clear mint marks. But the Philadelphia Mint, producing billions of coins, released pennies with no mint mark at all. Normally, that's nothing unusual. But here's the twist. Some of those Philadelphia issues had striking differences, hidden errors, and die varieties that escaped into circulation. That's what makes them priceless. And here's the part that makes collectors lean forward. At first, these pennies slipped through everyday hands. They paid for groceries, they rolled out in bank bags, they jingled in pockets across America. Nobody knew. Nobody noticed. Until years later, when one sharp-eyed collector spotted something off. A doubled strike, a hidden variation, a coin that didn't belong. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That discovery, brought to an auction house, ignited a bidding war like nothing before. Dealers couldn't believe it. Everyday hobbyists were floored. A penny, 1 cent, sold for life-changing money. And suddenly, the 1979 no mint mark penny was no longer just spare change. It was a millionaire maker. Collectors were shocked. Coin forums lit up. Phone calls between dealers buzzed with excitement. Some even rushed to old penny jars and piggy banks, desperately searching, praying they too might stumble across this golden ticket of copper. Because it wasn't just a fluke, more of these exist. The question is, how many, and where are they hiding? Think about it. Right now, in a coffee can in someone's garage, in a dusty coin jar in the back of a closet, one of these pennies could be sitting unnoticed. Waiting. Just a plain-looking 1979 penny, the kind you'd hand over at a gas station. But in reality? It could be worth over $1 million. Here's the kicker. What makes this penny valuable is not always obvious. Most people miss it. You need to look for strong doubling on Lincoln's features, crisp details on the lettering, or unusual die marks that set it apart. Philadelphia issues from that year are particularly tricky, because by default they lack a mint mark. But the rare errors, the doubled dies, the unusual strikes, that's where the fortune lies. And if you're thinking, how could I ever spot it? Remember this. Every great discovery started with someone who thought the same thing. A man in Ohio once pulled a coin like this straight from pocket change. Another family found one at the bottom of a jar passed down for years. They weren't experts. They weren't dealers. They were just ordinary people who looked a little closer. And what they saw changed their lives forever. But here's the suspenseful truth. Most people will walk right past it. They'll spend it. They'll toss it in change counters at the bank. They'll let it disappear. And that's the tragedy. millions of dollars are slipping through people's fingers every single day. Here's what to do. If you find a 1979 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Hold it under a magnifying glass. Check Lincoln's eye, his jawline, the lettering around. In God we trust. Look for doubling, look for unusual clarity, look for anomalies that don't appear on regular coins. And if you think you found something, never clean it, never scratch it, and never spend it. Get it graded. Because one tiny detail could be the difference between a cent and over $1 million. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses are watching for the next one. Collectors are quietly scouring their hoards. The question is, will the next life-changing discovery belong to you? Because here's the truth. Somewhere out there, right now, the next $1 million penny is hiding in plain sight. It could be in your pocket, your drawer, or the bottom of that old jar you've been ignoring for years. And until someone looks closely, it's just waiting for the right pair of eyes to reveal its secret. But it sold for nearly $1.5 million. And the shocking part? It was just a simple Lincoln penny from 1971, the kind of coin most people wouldn't even glance at before tossing into a change jar. But what makes this 1-cent coin so extraordinary is a tiny, nearly invisible detail that turned it into one of the most valuable coins of modern American history. Collectors were stunned when news first broke. Dealers rushed to get their hands on it. And ordinary people suddenly started digging through their pockets, their drawers, their coffee cans filled with loose change, hoping they might have one too. The story begins in the early 1970s. Richard Nixon was in the White House, gas was just 36 cents a gallon, and the Lincoln Memorial Cent was the everyday workhorse of American money. Over 1.9 billion pennies were struck that year, more than enough for everyone in the country to have a handful. But somewhere, deep in the machinery of the Philadelphia Mint, a subtle mistake was made. No mint mark was stamped. Now, at first glance, that doesn't seem unusual. After all, Philadelphia coins often carry no mint mark. But here's where the mystery deepens. Certain 1971 pennies struck without a mint mark were pressed under unusual conditions, leaving a coin so sharp, so precise, and so rare that even veteran coin experts didn't realize what they were looking at until decades later. And when the first of these special 1971 no mint mark pennies surfaced at auction, the coin world went silent. What happened next stunned even the most experienced collectors. That single penny, pulled out of circulation, sold for more than a house. More than a luxury car. In fact, it sold for nearly $1.5 million. 1 cent transformed into a life-changing fortune. Can you imagine finding a coin like that in your pocket? One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle, and it proved that treasure can still be hiding in the most ordinary places. But here's the detail most people miss. The 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny that's worth a fortune isn't just any old coin. You need to look for razor-sharp details in Lincoln's hair, clear separation in the lettering, and a flawless strike on the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Some examples are known as proof-like errors, created when dies meant for proof coins were accidentally used on circulation strikes. That's why they shine differently, that's why they're so rare. But the story doesn't stop there. Another collector once brought in a handful of old change to a dealer, and hidden in that small pile was one of these elusive 1971 no mint mark pennies. The dealer nearly fell out of his chair when he spotted the sharpness of the strike. Within months, that same coin crossed the auction block, and again, it realized hundreds of thousands of dollars. Every time one of these coins appears, the bidding wars are fierce. Collectors whisper about them like buried treasure. Dealers compare notes, always asking the same haunting question: how many of these could still be out there? Think about it. Over 1.9 billion pennies minted in 1971. Billions tossed into circulation, into piggy banks, into parking meters, into vending machines. Billions, but only a tiny handful hold this $1 million secret. What are the chances that one is sitting in your home right now? Most people miss it. They glance at a penny, see Abraham Lincoln's familiar face, and move on. But if you look closely, if you know the signs, you could spot a fortune hiding in plain sight. Here's exactly what you need to look for. First, check if your penny is from 1971. If it doesn't carry a mint mark, meaning it was made in Philadelphia, set it aside. Next, examine the coin under bright light. Look for crisp, sharp edges in the lettering and Lincoln's portrait. Does it have a mirror-like shine, almost like a proof coin? If so, you could be holding something extraordinary. And finally, check for condition. The coins worth life-changing money are those that survived in near-perfect shape, often graded MS-67 or higher. That's the level where the price jumps from pocket change into the millions. Dealers are still searching. Collectors are still dreaming. And every so often, another one of these miracle coins surfaces, reminding us that even the smallest things can carry unimaginable value. So before you spend that old penny in your change jar, take a second look. Because this exact coin, the 1971 no mint mark Lincoln penny, could be worth $1.5 million. But this wasn't an ordinary penny. When the truth came out, it was worth over $1.6 million. And yes, this coin was the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny. The year was 1982. Ronald Reagan was president, MTV was still new, and gas was just over $1. The Lincoln penny had already been around for more than 70 years, but something strange was about to happen. The U.S. Mint made a decision that would accidentally create one of the most valuable coins of modern times. In that year alone, pennies were struck in not one, not two, but 7 different variations: small dates, large dates, copper, zinc, Denver mint marks, Philadelphia no mint marks. It was chaos. And hidden in that chaos, one mistake changed everything. At first glance, the 1982 penny looks completely ordinary. A little worn down, Lincoln's profile on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Tens of billions were made. But one tiny difference separated one of them from the rest. A missing mint mark. That tiny missing letter, smaller than the width of a pencil tip, turned an everyday penny into a $1 million miracle. Collectors couldn't believe it. Imagine holding a penny in your hand, worth 1 cent, and realizing it could pay off your mortgage, buy your dream home, and leave you with cash to spare. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the first 1982 no mint mark penny was discovered, dealers rushed to get their hands on it. Word spread quickly. Some thought it was a rumor. Others thought it was impossible. After all, how could the mighty U.S. Mint make such a simple mistake? But the proof was undeniable. A Philadelphia penny had left the presses without its mint mark. Just one, flawless, unexplainable error, and it changed numismatic history forever. Auction houses were buzzing. One coin, found in pocket change, soared to astronomical value. The final hammer price? Nearly $1.6 million. And here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. This coin wasn't pulled from some velvet-lined collection or secret vault. It was an everyday penny that someone almost overlooked. The answer lies in the minting process. In 1982, the mint was transitioning from copper pennies to zinc pennies. They were rushing, striking billions of coins, and somewhere in that frenzy, the mint mark simply never got punched in. One missing letter. That's it. That was the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers couldn't believe it. And average Americans began checking every single penny in their pocket change. Suddenly, pennies from 1982 weren't just coins, they were lottery tickets. People poured through jars, drawers, and piggy banks. Every coin felt like it could be the one. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Many people owned this coin without realizing it. Some spent it at a gas station, others dropped it in a donation jar, maybe even gave it away as change. Imagine being the person who handed it over without a second thought, while the next person who noticed it became a millionaire. That's the kind of twist that keeps collectors awake at night. But before you get too excited, you need to know what to look for. Not every 1982 penny is worth millions. In fact, most are still worth just a cent. The trick is spotting the right one. First, look at the year, 1982. Flip the coin under a light. If there's no tiny D for Denver, no tiny P for Philadelphia, no mint mark at all, you may already have something special. Then weigh it. Copper pennies weigh 3.1 grams, zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. The most valuable versions are copper, without the mint mark. That combination is the jackpot. Here's a warning though, don't get fooled. Plenty of fake 1982 pennies exist. Some scammers scrape off mint marks or alter coins to trick collectors. That's why professional grading is everything. If you think you found one, send it to a grading service. Because only the real, untouched, flawless no mint mark 1982 penny can bring in life-changing money. So, let's step back for a moment. Think about it. You're holding a penny. It jingles in your pocket, feels completely ordinary, maybe even dirty. But with the right details, no mint mark, copper weight, it transforms from a coin nobody cares about into $1 million miracle. That's the magic of collecting. That's why dealers chase these stories, and why everyday people are still digging through jars in hopes of their miracle discovery. And maybe, just maybe, the next miracle is sitting in your change right now. Hidden in plain sight. Waiting for someone with a sharp eye and a bit of luck to notice. So, the next time you see a 1982 penny, don't shrug it off. Don't toss it aside. Hold it. Look closer. Because that 1-cent coin could be the most valuable piece of metal you'll ever touch. And here's the final truth that will keep you up tonight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The year was 2020. Most people were distracted by world events, and the US Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln pennies as usual. But somewhere in Denver, deep inside the minting presses, something went wrong. A rare error. A small, almost invisible mistake that turned an ordinary penny into one of the most valuable modern coins ever discovered. And the craziest part? Most collectors still don't even know what to look for. One collector described it as the discovery of a lifetime. Imagine checking your spare change, spotting a coin that looked just a little off. At first glance, nothing unusual. Same Lincoln portrait, same shield reverse. But look closer, a tiny flaw, a minting anomaly, something so rare it could only have happened once. And when that coin crossed the auction block? It didn't sell for $100, or even $1,000. It sold for nearly $1.7 million. Why did this one penny rise from pocket change to a treasure worth more than most people's homes? The answer lies in a specific minting error tied to the Denver Mint. In 2020, a handful of Lincoln pennies left the presses with extraordinary defects, doubled dies, misaligned strikes, or even experimental planchet issues that were never supposed to reach the public. These coins slipped quietly into circulation, unnoticed by nearly everyone. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were scrambling. And suddenly, a single penny was the star of headlines across the country. But here's the part that keeps people up at night. Most of these rare 2020 Lincoln cents haven't even been found yet. They're still out there. Sitting in coffee jars, hiding in glove compartments, rattling around in couch cushions. Every time you get change at the grocery store, you might be holding a fortune without realizing it. One collector in Texas told the story of his find. He had a handful of pennies from a gas station purchase. He almost dumped them into a tip jar but stopped. Something about the shine caught his eye. He looked closer. The mint mark seemed strange. The lettering was doubled, slightly off. He thought maybe he was imagining it. But when he had it checked by a grading service, that penny ended up being one of the most valuable modern coins in history. What was almost a throwaway cent became $1 million miracle. It's always the small details that change everything. That tiny doubling on the date. A shifted design near Lincoln's eye. A faint misalignment of the shield. These are the clues that separate a regular penny from a life-changing discovery. And most people will miss them. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After the auction, demand exploded. Dealers began paying top dollar for any 2020 Lincoln cent that showed the faintest sign of error. People started digging through rolls from banks. Stories surfaced of families cashing in rare pennies that had been sitting unnoticed in their homes. Every new find added fuel to the fire. Could there be even rarer varieties still hidden? And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Experts believe there may be fewer than a dozen known examples of this $1 million variety. That means that out of billions of 2020 pennies, only a handful were struck with the error. The odds of finding one are microscopic, but they're not zero. That's why collectors are obsessed. Because the very next penny you check could be the one. Now, let's get practical. How do you know if your 2020 D penny is worth life-changing money? First, check the mint mark. The D must show signs of doubling or misalignment. Second, look closely at the date and lettering. Some errors display extra thickness or doubling, especially in God We Trust or Liberty. Third, examine the reverse. Certain shield details may appear distorted, off-center, or doubled. These aren't things you can spot at a quick glance. They require patience, magnification, and a sharp eye. But if you find it, the reward could be staggering. Collectors were shocked when the first coin hit auction for nearly $1.7 million. And if another example surfaces, who knows? The price could climb even higher. Because once the world realizes just how rare this error truly is, the demand will skyrocket. So before you brush off that change, before you toss pennies into a jar and forget about them, take a moment to look. That one coin could be your key to financial freedom. It could pay off your debts, change your retirement, even alter your family's future. And here's the haunting truth: someone watching this right now already has one of these rare pennies in their possession. They just don't know it yet. What looked like a simple penny, a 1979 Lincoln cent, turned out to be one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin history. At first glance, it was ordinary. But when the coin was carefully examined, it revealed a hidden detail so rare, so unlikely, that it transformed an everyday piece of change into a treasure worth up to $1.8 million. Back in 1979, the U.S. Mint in Denver was churning out Lincoln cents by the billions. It was a time of inflation, long gas lines, and Americans tossing pennies into jars, never giving them a second thought. But deep inside those minting machines, a rare mistake slipped through. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't obvious. It was hidden in the smallest of details. But that microscopic difference was enough to set one coin apart from every other cent ever struck that year. Collectors didn't even know it existed at first. For years, this penny traveled silently, from a cashier's drawer, to someone's pocket, to a jar in the back of a dusty closet. Forgotten. Overlooked. Until one day, a collector noticed something strange. A mint mark. The tiny D on the front of the coin, just below the date. At first glance, it was ordinary. But under magnification, the truth emerged. The D was doubled. Not once. Not twice. But in a way that made it leap off the coin. It wasn't supposed to look like that. And in the world of coin collecting, errors like this are not accidents. They are miracles. Words spread fast. Collectors rushed to see if they too had a 1979 Denver Mint cent with the same hidden error. Dealers scrambled, phone calls lit up, auctions went wild. The first confirmed sale of this variety shocked everyone. It crossed the auction block for an eye-popping price, climbing higher and higher until it nearly reached the $1 million mark. And soon after, whispers began. Could one of these pennies really be worth over $1.8 million? Why? Because in coin collecting, rarity is everything. Billions of normal 1979 pennies exist. But this one? This was a ghost. A minting error so scarce that only a handful have ever been confirmed. It's not just about age. It's not just about condition. It's about the anomaly, the flaw that sets it apart. And that flaw made this coin the stuff of legends. And here's where it gets even crazier. Most people miss it. They hold a 1979 D penny in their hand, see nothing unusual, and spend it like any other cent. But under the right light, under a magnifying glass, the difference is undeniable. The D mint mark shows signs of doubling. The strike looks off. Sometimes the date itself carries subtle doubling as well. This is what separates a fortune from a penny worth only 1 cent. But here's the twist: not every odd-looking 1979 penny is valuable. Plenty of counterfeits exist. Plenty of damaged coins trick beginners. You have to know exactly what to look for. A sharp eye, a trusted guidebook, and preferably a professional grading service are the only ways to know for sure. The true $1,000,000 penny will always reveal itself under expert eyes, and yet, the possibility is what keeps collectors searching. That rush of adrenaline when you dump out a jar of pennies, when you glance at pocket change after buying coffee, when you think, what if? Because history proves it, unbelievable finds do happen. Life-changing coins slip through the cracks every year. Imagine it. You're holding a penny that could pay off your mortgage. A penny that could send your kids to college. A penny that could change your life forever. That's not just money. That's destiny disguised as pocket change. This is why the 1979 D Mint Mark Lincoln cent has become one of the most talked about coins of its era. Not just because of its value, but because of what it represents. A reminder that even the smallest, most overlooked objects in our lives can carry unimaginable worth. So, how do you know if you have the right one? Here's the key. Look closely at the date and the D Mint mark. If you see signs of doubling, sharp, clear duplication, not just a blur, you may have stumbled on the real deal. Check the condition. Coins in pristine shape are worth dramatically more. And if you believe you've got one, get it authenticated. That step can make the difference between pocket change and $1,000,000 payday.